Hey everybody, my name is Paul Eston Jr., aka Boy Green. Welcome to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and also make sure you hit that subscribe button. Every week, we talk to an opponent who the Jets are playing, an expert from that team. And this week, we got a great guest, because it's Jets-Patriots week. A great rivalry still for me. This is the one in the AFC East that always gets my gears turning, and I'm sure it will throughout this conversation. And I love doing this every Monday, so we have a week to marinate on everything so people can check out this interview. And this conversation is with Pat Lane, co-host of the Patriot Nation podcast and writer for Pat's Pulpit, the SB Nation sister site covering all things New England Patriots. So let's bring him in. Pat, what's up, man?
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I'm excited. I'm excited about this week.
Well, I got to tell you this, and this is just unbelievable. So I've been doing all kinds of radio shows, podcasts, and all kinds of things. And I have a consistent guy in Buffalo Bills land that joins me all the time, Dolphins land, sure. Patriots people, I've been scouring the earth, apparently, for the right Patriots guy for any of my shows, whether YouTube, radio, or anything. So finally, I got a lot of recommendations about you, my man. So you got a lot to live up to.
Wow, I appreciate that. You know, hopefully I can live up to the highest standards. I mean, listen, I'm a big Patriots fan because I have no voice because I was screaming my head off at the game yesterday. Unfortunately, I lost, but and we'll get into it. But I think there's no such thing as a good loss, but close, kind of a good loss.
Okay, wow. I never thought I would hear that from a Patriots fan, especially one who's won a bunch of Super Bowls. So let's get into that. I'm curious, were you screaming at this? Because to the outside world, when the Patriots released Cam Newton, I'm on the radio live. So all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of a great bit. I'm like, oh, wow, boo, bop, bam. And then my producer shows me his phone, and I'm like, sweet Caroline. And I'm like, throw everything off the table. Yep. What the heck? The Patriots just released Cam Newton. Did you in particular, and also Patriot fans in general, have the same level of surprise at that cut?
I was shocked. I mean, listen, I think our podcast in general was of the opinion that Mac was the better quarterback, that Mac had beat Cam out for the job, that we thought the offense just ran better with Mac Jones at quarterback. And I thought that was pretty obvious to anyone that watched camp or any of the preseason games for that matter. But Cam had gotten all the first team reps. Cam had been treated like the starting quarterback from day one. And it just kind of seemed like they were going in that direction. And then, to not just bench him and start Mac, to just cut him, we were like, I'm completely blown away, completely caught by surprise. So it was, exciting for us because we were like, hey, lots to talk about, and we were excited to start the Mac Jones era and everything. But it was definitely shocking.
All right, and speaking of that, obviously the only reason Bill Belichick, the crazy mastermind, would do this is because inside his gut he has some confidence, obviously, in Mac Jones, the guy they took 15th overall out of Alabama. So let's go back to the draft for a moment before we move forward and talk about the game yesterday and everything. What were the reactions, once again, from you and other Patriot fans when, again, New England takes Mac Jones and we see him power walking up to the stage as the new franchise quarterback for New England? What was your take on that?
So we actually, Pat's Pulpit does it. Last year we did it for the first time, and we're going to keep doing it, but we were live the entire first round on YouTube. Phenomenal. And we are in the process of scrubbing that video from the internet because we were not happy. We were all Fields guys. We were all Justin Fields guys. And so when the Bears leapfrogged the Patriots to get to 11, and it was like he's sitting right there as 11. Like all you had to do was move up a little bit. Like we were so mad. And listen, there's nothing against Mac. Like the hard thing for me and the scary thing for me is that when I watch Mac Jones play, I see Tom Brady, and that's terrifying because like no one's Tom Brady. So I'm like, well, he can't possibly be as good as Tom Brady. So if the first comparison I have is Tom Brady, in my Patriots mind, that's horrifying because it's like, I don't want the guy, he can't possibly live up to that, right? So he can't possibly be that good, right? And so that was the issue that honestly, the biggest issue I had with him, because you couldn't, and it was like, well, his guys are way better than everyone else and all this. But like when he got here to camp, the way that mentally that he sees the game is special, similar to what Brady did. Obviously, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We can't, anyone that compares him to Brady's an idiot. But you see some of the same things that Brady was able to do. And of course, Brady's next level. But if this guy can be 50%, 75% of what Brady could do, now you're talking about, a franchise guy that can be your starting quarterback for a long time. And so I think they identified something. They sat at 15. And when they, the instant reaction was kind of like, oh, like really? But at the same time, it's like, all right, if this is the guy that they think, and I've been saying all along, like, I just want Belichick to pick the next guy, right? He did it with Jimmy G, and Jimmy G looked pretty damn good yesterday in San Francisco. He's looked really, every time he's been healthy in San Francisco, they go to the Super Bowl. So, like, only have him once, but still, when he's healthy in San Francisco, they're really good. And so, like, my thought process was, okay, if he picks the next guy, I'm okay with it. And so if he thinks that Mac's the next guy, okay, like, I'm on board, and let's see what happens. And, and so far, it looks good. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that the instant reaction, especially to the Fields trade. Oh man, like the video when they traded up for Fields was rough, and the Mac response wasn't great either. But it was just like we were upset that we didn't get Fields. It had nothing to do with Mac Jones. It was like we wanted Justin Fields, and we ended up with Mac Jones instead. But you didn't give up a pick to do it. You didn't trade anywhere. You didn't have to do anything. So he just falls to your lap at 15, and we'll see. We'll see. I was happy with week one, and I've been happy so far, but long way to go.
By the way, I was in the same camp but the opposite side, and let me explain. Is that so the Jets get their boy Zach Wilson. I'm like, okay, phenomenal. That's great. And then the draft is happening. I'm seeing Fields slip, and I'm looking at New England at 15. I'm looking back at Fields. He's just going, boop, 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 boop. I'm like, please, someone, for the love of everything that's holy, trade up for Justin Fields. Yeah. I cannot see Justin Fields in a New England Patriots uniform. It's going to haunt me for the rest of my life because I just felt – and again, I could be wrong. Anyone could be wrong. I just felt that I thought Trevor Lawrence, of course, is going to be great. I thought Zach Wilson has a chance to be really good. But Justin Fields, I'm like, man, this guy has a real chance to be a stud. So when the Bears traded up, I celebrated perhaps even greater than the Jets picking Zach Wilson. I'm like, thank jambalaya. Sweet Lord have mercy. Thank God. And then when they picked Mac Jones, again, it was a little bit of the running joke. Like, oh, of course they got Mac Jones. That's right. I just got to say, from my perspective, thank God you guys didn't get Justin Fields because I would have been worried. I just saw everything there, the dynamic play and everything. And it was almost like, and it's obviously much different. If anyone has ever watched Justin Fields, this is way different. But like New England had that chance a couple years ago to take Lamar Jackson right at the end. And I was always sitting there like, they wouldn't do it, would they? And then they took whoever they took. I'm like, oh, thank God. But again, that same way with Justin Fields, I'm like, I don't even want to see him with a guy that's got that kind of ability. He's not Lamar Jackson. Again, if anyone's seen a college tape, they would know that. But again, still, I was just, thank God.
Right. Oh,
yeah. Is, obviously.
Yeah.
I will say this. So let's fast forward to week one now. So Flores, so Mac Jones. Okay, kid, slap on the ass. You're now the guy. Week one, and you're playing the Miami Dolphins. You're playing Brian Flores, a guy that's a former Patriots guy. He's known for his hard defense. And I'm like, man, how's this rookie going to fare against Brian Flores, who is super aggressive defensively? What'd you think he did? What'd you think of his debut?
I was impressed. I was very impressed. First sign of pressure, he throws the ball on the ground backwards. Kind of forgot where he was for the moment. Obviously not a good play, and really cost him 3 points, which was obviously the difference in the game, right? So obviously not the only issue, clearly. But after that play, he made some really nice throws. He showed some really good touch on some plays. He manipulated safeties with his eyes and with the ball better than I expected him to be able to do. And his ability, it's really the ability to see the game as it's happening and see the field as it's happening and know what's there and be able to take it. There was a long way to go. There were times where he missed guys and he checked it down instead. There were definitely times when the pressure got to him a little bit and he just got rid of it instead of getting it to the right guy. But his ability and his willingness, I think, to stand in the pocket and take a hit, knowing it's coming. He knows it's coming. He had Hunter Henry on a crossing route, and he knows it's a free rusher. He knows the guy's coming in his face, but he waited. Henry got open, and he hit him for a first down on third down. Another play with Jacoby Myers, it's an all-out blitz, and everyone's coming, and everyone knows it, but he waited for Jacoby Myers to get across the field. He's got 3 guys in his face, and he hit Myers for the first down. So it's plays like that that give me hope that, like, he sees what's happening, that he knows what he has to do, and he goes out there and executes. And then, look, they get the ball with 5.5 minutes left to go in the game, down 1. And he drives them right down the field, and they get down to the 11-yard line, and Damien Harris fumbles. And it's just like, if that ends with a touchdown or a field goal and they win the game, now you're looking at his first career game. His first career NFL start ends with a fourth quarter comeback to win the game, right? And like, that's the type of thing that you just can't, like, I mean, it would have been the narrative around here and everywhere else would have been, oh my God, can you believe that Mac Jones did that, right? So, and it's not on him. It's not on him. They fumbled 5 times, right? So they only lost 2 of them, but they fumbled 5 because one was Max. But it's just the ball security, the penalties, things like that were against him, but it didn't phase him. He just kept going, right? Drives kept getting pushed back, and he kept picking up first downs. And they were 11 for 19 on third down. So he was good. He was. There's a lot of hope for me for the future. A long way to go for him. Far from perfect. And he missed some reads, but he also missed some throws. He had Jacoby Myers open on a kind of a sprint out. And Myers probably should have caught the ball anyways, but he's picking up 15 yards if Mac hits him, and so it's one of those things where it's kind of like you got it. Those are the ones you have to have, right? And so he's getting there, but from what I saw was leaps and bounds above what I thought I was going to see from him. And listen, he finished with 133 yards in the first half. That was more passing yards than they had in any first half all year last year. So week 1 of his NFL career. So already we're trending in the right direction. And so we'll see. The stat lines look good. Obviously, 29 for 39. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to complete 70% of his passes while attempting 30-plus passes in his first career start. But like some of those were he hits a check down and the reads were there. They kind of confuse him a little bit, and he just checks it down instead of making what might have ended up being a little bit of a tougher throw, but probably the right decision, right? So those are things that they'll fix as they go along. But for a first impression, I was very impressed.
Well, let me ask you a quick I didn't even have this lined up, but a quick detour on this. Is there anything, and Jet fans were fearing this yesterday, they're like, man, the Patriots lost. Now it's angry Bill Belichick at 0-1 as opposed to, we're 1-0. We'll look past the Jets. Like, is there anything to that?
There are 2 things that Bill Belichick hates in this life: the New York Jets and the New York Jets. It doesn't matter. The Jets game is Super Bowl week for the Patriots. Bill Belichick does not want to lose to the Jets. So it doesn't matter. They could be 14-0. They could be 5-0. It makes 0 difference. Now, maybe the players will be a little bit more focused, right? Because they're going to get chewed out for all the penalties and mistakes and everything else, maybe. But from a coaching standpoint, absolutely not. Belichick, this is like he's got the 2 Jets games circled on the calendar as soon as the schedule comes out.
And that's for the rest of his life until he kicks the bucket, I imagine.
Exactly. Exactly.
For Bill Belichick. Hey, we're speaking with Pat Lane, co-host of the Patriot Nation podcast and writer for Pat's Pulpit, which is the SB Nation site covering all things New England Patriots. And again, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe on this video. Let's go to something that was uncharacteristic this offseason. New England Patriots were rolling in dough. It was Oprah Winfrey. You get money. You get money. You get money. Everyone was getting money this offseason, and that intrigued me greatly. One of the things that scared me, one of the things that made me wake up in the middle of the night was when the Patriots said, okay, I'm going to sign Jonnu Smith. I'm like, okay. Then they said, I'm going to sign Hunter Henry. And I was getting Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski flashbacks. And, obviously those 2 players in that moment in history were like so unbelievably good, and what the Patriots did to the rest of the NFL is scary. So obviously, again, one of these moments where we're like, well, obviously that bar is way here. But
right.
What is the realistic ceiling for those 2 as a tandem in New England?
Yeah, I mean, they looked, and, of course, 1 game, right? But they both look pretty good. And the issue is that they both also struggle with injuries. So the question is, can they both stay healthy? But if they can both stay healthy, you're looking at 2 dynamic playmakers. And Jonnu is more kind of a run and catch guy. He's great with the ball in his hands. After the catch, there was a play where he was running down the sideline. He ended up stepping out of bounds, but he caught it, broke a tackle, and then was flying down the sideline, and he ended up stepping out of bounds before that. But he's great after the catch, and he's going to be all over the field. He's kind of that guy that's all over. They gave him a handoff yesterday on a quick jet sweep. He's going to touch the ball a ton. I think he's going to kind of be their number 1 option, I would say, like as far as just moving all around the field. Whereas Hunter Henry's going to be kind of more that regular Gronk type thing where they're hitting him on seams, they're hitting him on crossing routes. So I think you're going to kind of see that from both of them, to have dynamic playmakers like that. And here's the real thing, right? The Patriots got a great offensive line, and they have a very good running game, right? And obviously the fumbles yesterday not great, but when all is said and done, they have a very good rushing attack. If you come out in a double tight end, you can't come out in a nickel formation against them, right? So, or maybe you can, but realistically, one of those guys is going to get a safety and one of those guys is going to get a linebacker. And so you're going to have a mismatch on one of those guys because there's not many linebackers in the league that can stick with either one of those guys, right? So, and you can't bring out a ton of safeties to cover. So it's going to make life difficult for anybody that covers them. And so, it's all that the movement before the snap. And we saw a ton of motion from Jonnu already, in the first game. So I think finding mismatches from them is going to be good. The Gronk Hernandez bar is too high. It's just, it's not realistic for them, especially like 2011. They were just outrageously good. But I do think they can be that 1-2 tandem. I've been talking a lot of fantasy sports over the offseason. I think they can both be tight end ones. In other words, top 12 tight ends fantasy wise. I just think that they're going to get enough targets. I think Hunter Henry can catch, anywhere from 7 to 10 touchdown passes because he's just a force in the red zone. And Johnny's just going to touch the ball over and over and over again because they're just going to try to get it to him in a bunch of different situations. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them. Now, I don't think they'll be 5-7. I think they might be 9-12 or something like that. But I do think that they can both kind of hover around that spot. So I'm excited to see what they can do. And I think they both. I think Henry only had 3 catches. John had 5 catches. So they weren't all over the field. But as we see more, they are going to get some more targets and have an opportunity to make some more plays. So I think Hunter Henry had. I think all 3 of his catches were on 3rd down, and they all went to 1st down. So it's one of those things where, they're getting those targets early. So I would expect that to be a real big force for them, those 2 guys, because then it's okay, now you got to bring the safeties up and then Aguilar goes over the top. So now you get, it's kind of playing with all that stuff. And that's what Belichick and McDaniels does best is kind of exploit those mismatches.
Let's go to the wide receiving core because I'm going to be honest, it's weird, man. I don't even know what to make of it. I see Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, and I is this good? I don't know.
Well, that's a good question. I think Jacoby had a tough game yesterday. He played okay, but he didn't play great. He had a few kind of drops. He just wasn't great. Nelson Aguilar looked like the best wide receiver on the field yesterday. Sure-handed, had some really nice routes, cut some really good passes. So he looked good. Kendrick Bourne only finished with 1 catch, but he had 2 other catches that both went for almost 20 yards that both got wiped out by penalties. So, unfortunately, it just kind of worked out that way. He would have finished with a better stat line. I think the wide receiving core as a whole is fine. They're fine. They're not special, but they're fine. But when you add in the tight ends and you add in the running game, that's when it improves, right? Because Jacoby Myers and maybe Aguilar is their wide receiver. When I felt like Myers would get the most targets, but maybe it will be Aguilar. But even if it is Aguilar, all right, he'll be fine. He might catch 70 balls, but he's not gonna go for 1,500 yards or something stupid like that. He's fine. He's gonna be okay, right? And so they don't have that guy that you're whoa, that guy's really good. They just don't have that. But I also don't know if they necessarily need that. The Patriots didn't have that really ever. Obviously they had Edelman when, Edelman got good and everything like that, and they had Moss in 07, but outside of those few years, they really never had that real number 1 guy, and it didn't really matter because it was just throw to the guy that's open. And I feel like Mac, they're going to kind of run this offense the same way they ran it with Brady in 01, which is throw to the guy that's open. It doesn't really matter who it is. They all can pretty much catch. They're all fine with the ball in their hands afterwards. So, if you get a bunch of reliable guys that you feel like are going to be in the right spot and make the catch when the ball gets there, that's really what the Patriots want more so than, not that Stephon Diggs isn't a nice luxury to have, but to have one Stephon Diggs or a Justin Jefferson or a guy like that, that's nice. But if I got 4 guys that are all reliable, then I'm okay with that. We can survive with just that. So.
Let's go to the backfield. Damien Harris. So you mentioned it. Mac was in the perfect position for the Hollywood ending. It was great. Damien Harris gets mugged. Ball pops out. And all of a sudden Miami takes over. We all know what happens after that. Miami ends up winning the game. Is Damien Harris now thrown in the old Bill Belichick doghouse, and now he's going to be lashed for the rest of his life, and we're never going to see of him again? What does the running back room look like heading into this Jets game in week 2?
Well, problem is, you deactivated J.J. Taylor for the game. Ramondre Stevenson, who was the rookie, fumbled as well on his second career touch. So, there's no one to replace him with. Damien Harris is the guy. He's RB1. It was a bad mistake, and it's inexcusable. But he also had, he touched the ball. He was out there for 40 snaps. He was gassed. And so you have to be able to bring somebody else in. And the idea was Stevenson, but then he fumbled early. He's had fumbling problems in camp. To me, the right decision was J.J. Taylor. Stevenson gets whatever up to the booth. It gets deactivated for the game or whatever. To me, that's the right call. J.J. Taylor can come in, can spell Harris every now and again, but he can run inside the tackles as well and catch the ball out of the backfield, similar to Stevenson. So I think Harris is the guy. I've been saying all offseason, Harris is going for 1,200 yards and 10 TDs. I just feel like that's where he's headed this year. He ran for 100 yards yesterday, right? So, obviously, you would have liked to see it end differently, right? But, he also had a touchdown call back on a suspect holding call. So it's the game could have been a lot different if that holding call doesn't get called. He scores a touchdown instead of them kicking a field goal on that drive, and then they win the game anyway. So it's you of course, play those games and everything else, but he played very well up until that point. And so I expect them to keep feeding him the ball and keep giving him the ball. But, 40 snaps in the first game of the season for a running back, not ideal. It's not ideal. And so I think they're going to have to give him some, spell him a little bit more than they did yesterday. And I think they know that. I think they wanted to, but then the rookie put the ball on the ground. So it's kind of well, what do you want us to do? Well, Brandon Bolden was out there once or twice, but it's he stinks. He can't, so that's the hard part about it. I think they made the wrong decision on that. So I expect Harris to be just fine. The offensive line, we'll see. Trent Brown went down with a calf injury yesterday. We'll see what that looks like. If he's healthy, then I think the offensive line is going to continue to be very good. If he's hurt for an extended period of time, that's not going to be great. So it's just going to matter. It's just going to depend on what happens there. So, but Harris is the guy still. I'd be shocked if he loses any snaps other than, like I said, maybe dropping from 40 to 35, 30, 35 or something like that until he gets his real legs underneath him as the season goes on.
And man, as a fantasy guy, New England just riding somebody the whole way. I have not seen that in God knows how long. So I try to avoid the New England backfield as much as possible. Yep. Perhaps that'll be a mistake down the line with this Damien Harris kid. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. No Stephon Gilmore. He's on the PUP list, so he's missing the first 6 games of the season, and we will see if he's ready. I believe the Jets' second Patriots game is week 7. So we will see, and I think that's coming off the bye. So we'll see whatever that looks like. But we know he won't be playing in this one. What's the depth look like at corner for New England?
It's okay. Jalen Mills is the second corner, and he's fine. But it's the hard thing is that they couldn't play a lot of man because they don't have Gilmore, and you can't ask Jalen Mills to cover the number 2 wide receiver on the team man to man. He can't do it. That's not what he does. You know what I mean? He's fine. He's good, kind of being all over the place. They brought him in to be that safety / slot guy / kind of everything. Can play outside corner in a pinch. They didn't envision him playing outside corner to start the season. They didn't envision that, right? And so you're there, but you can't play man-to-man. You can't do it. And so what was happening is that they were dropping off guys. Miami would call a quick slant play. They wouldn't drop someone in the slant. You get 10 yards off, you get no shot. It's an easy 10-yard gain every time. And it's that becomes difficult for the Patriots to stop, right? Especially with the play-action fake, you bring the linebackers up and boom, that's it. That slant's wide open. So, I'm concerned about it, certainly for the next few weeks. J.C. Jackson played pretty well. He gave up a pass or two. I thought misplayed, a long pass on 3rd and long that, really ended up costing the Patriots, I thought, early in the 3rd quarter. So it's look, it's not going to be perfect, but I think overall they played okay. They played all right. I think they have a good secondary. With Gilmore, it's a great secondary. And then what it allows them to do is you can play man coverage on those 2 outside guys because you have Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, makes the offense's life a lot more difficult. When you play in zone, it's easier. It's easier when you play in zone. You run the little mesh. All of a sudden, the linebackers got to come up because they got to respect the run, right? And then, boom, that's wide open behind them. So it was a challenge, and seeing that slant over and over and over again was tough to watch yesterday. So, but overall, I mean, they gave up 17 points. So, like, realistically, right? It's like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's not, and the Patriots turned the ball over once at midfield, and the Dolphins lost like 15 yards, something like that, and had to punt. So, I think the hard thing for me was they struggled against the run yesterday situationally. They only gave up 76 yards rushing. So they really didn't struggle against the run overall. But when the Dolphins needed it, when they had to have it, they got it. When it was like they're running the ball, everyone knew they were running it, they picked it up. Like, Patriots had a hard time stopping those types of things. And that was the challenging part for me, was like, you have to be better at it situationally. Okay, it's 3rd and 1. They picked it up every time. Every time they picked it up, right? When they needed a yard, they got it. Like, it just, and that was the frustrating part, where it's like, you just got to kind of step up and make some plays. And so, for a lot of the game, they were playing with 2 down linemen, and that was it. Just 2 down linemen and everyone else linebackers, 2 down linemen and 4 linebackers, and then the rest of them defensive back. So it was certainly an interesting way to approach it. I think Miami has a lot of speed, so they were trying to, account for some of that speed off the edge. I don't know how much it worked, but like overall, like I say, Miami only scored 17 points. I can tell you right now, from a Jets perspective, if they're dropping Zach Wilson straight back, he's going to get himself killed. He's going to get himself killed. They're dropping him straight back. So it's got to be a lot of, if the Jets are smart, which I think the Jets are getting smarter, because I think your coach is a good coach. They're going to look at that film and say, okay, a lot of mesh, a lot of RPO, a lot of play action, a lot of rollouts. Like, every time Tua dropped straight back, he was under fire, right? And so it was all the other stuff. It was all the mesh stuff, the RPO stuff, the bootleg stuff. That stuff was where he had some time to throw for the most part. Dropping straight back is a bad idea. And I think with Wilson, you want him moving around anyway. So, like, I think it kind of works both ways for the Jets. But, like, yeah, anytime when the Dolphins tried to run a normal offense, it was bad. But again, they run that RPO stuff. They bring the Wildcat out, and that worked pretty well. So we'll see.
Okay, Pat, dropping straight back, not a good idea. I'll make sure I send that over to Robert Saleh, which, by the way, brings us full circle, actually. It's a beautiful segue. We all know Belichick's success against rookie quarterbacks. And by the way, the updated number on that is Belichick is 21-6 against rookie quarterbacks. That is an unbelievable. Like, when I looked that up ahead of this interview, because they all talk about it all the time, like, oh, Belichick's pretty good against rookies. I'm like, what's the updated number? I haven't looked it up in a while. 21-6. So pretty good. And I believe, thank God, the Jets are playing again at home, the lovely confines of MetLife for their home opener. Belichick, I believe, is 13-0 at home against rookies during that time, which, again, is incredible. I don't even know if you can answer this question, but I'm fascinated to know. What is the secret sauce to Belichick just knowing and howing to, mess around with all these rookie quarterbacks?
Well, I think the biggest thing is confusing and disguising the coverages, right? It's playing with different things that you haven't seen before. So you come out and you're looking at the defense and you don't know what they're going to run, right? And so it's making them uncomfortable because, from an offensive perspective, you want your quarterback to walk out there and understand what it is that they're seeing out there, so that when the ball gets snapped, I can look at the defense and say, okay, I know they're running this and they're running that, and then this is going to be open. And if that isn't open, then this will be open, right? And so where am I going to go with the ball first? Okay, if that's not there, then I'm going to go here. Well, Bill has done a really good job at confusing them and coming out with things that they don't expect. So now they go back and they're looking at the line of scrimmage and they're like, I don't know, what is this? Who's that guy? What's going on over there? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So then the ball gets snapped and now something changes and they're like, oh crap, like where am I throwing the ball? Like that guy's not open and neither is that guy. And then, oh crap, like that. And so then by the time we get into our fourth read, like it's already over, right? And then you're forcing the ball out or you're taking a sack or whatever. So it's confusing them and making them not understand what they're seeing. That's the biggest thing. And, the Darnold quote where you're seeing ghosts, right? Because that's what it is. He thinks that someone's going to be somewhere that they're not. And then all of a sudden there's someone there. Or then he thinks that someone's going to be there, but then they're not there. But he thinks they're there anyway. So it's like he's just confused, right? And so that's what he's been able to do to young quarterbacks. And that comes down to not only the quarterbacks, but also the coaches behind them, right? Putting them in the position to make the right read and to make the right throw. And like, it also comes from having, for the most part, a fairly veteran defense, right? I'll never forget the Roethlisberger story from '04. My favorite stories ever was the '04 AFC Championship game. And, the coaches all week said to Roethlisberger, do not throw it near 37. Don't do it. Like, the guy's going to look open. Do not throw it near Harrison. Don't do it. Under no circumstances. And so, later in the game, Roethlisberger sees it. He's like, oh, the guy's open, throws it. Harrison picks him off and runs it back 86 yards for a touchdown. Changes the whole game, right? And so it's like, when you have veterans that can make plays like that, you make those rookie quarterbacks think they see something and then give them something else. And Belichick is the master at doing that. I thought Flores did a great job with it against Mac. And again, Mac's numbers were good, but like, again, sometimes he's checking down when there was someone else open because he read the defense differently, right? And so the good thing is that his first thought is not, let me throw it in over here, even though it's triple coverage. I'm going to throw it down here because I don't like what I see, so I'm going to check it down. A lot of these quarterbacks coming out have been, all right, I'm just going to, I got the guy open, and then, oh crap, like he's triple covered, right? Like that guy comes off the screen already. So that's the tough stuff for those guys, is to figure out what Belichick is doing. It's all about confusion. It's all about making people see something they don't see, right? Or give them something that they think they see, but then it's not there, and then changing as they go. So that's really the way he's done it. And I don't know how he does it. I don't know if he looks at the college tape or he talks to, I have no idea, but like, he's just gotten so good at it that it's ridiculous. And frankly, it's one of the reasons why I'm shocked that they went with Mac, because I just figured Bill hates rookie quarterbacks. But I mean, he must have liked what he saw in Mac, I guess.
Apparently. And also, we got to make sure Zach Wilson is not mic'd up. I don't need any more viral things. Let's just avoid that completely. That would be the ideal. Last one before we get you out of here, Pat, and everyone who joins the show, the final question is, give me a prediction. Pull out the crystal ball. How do you see this one playing out? Who wins, score, what happens?
Oh, boy. What? The Patriots are winning. Like, I can't imagine the Patriots losing this game. The Jets, not only I feel like, are you guys not super talented, but now you have like 96 guys injured. Like, I heard, did Saleh announce that he was calling you? I think you're going to come up and play for them, aren't you, on Sunday? Because
true.
I don't know who the hell they have, dude. Like, they might be the only team in the league with more injuries than Baltimore. Like, you guys had like 5 guys go out on Sunday, and it's like, I think the Patriots are more talented anyways. And then to have that many guys go down, and Becton is a huge loss for them. You could talk about a rookie quarterback, and his left tackle, who's a stud, goes out in his first game, and now he's got to deal with, whoever the backup, I don't know who the backup left tackle is, but he's obviously not as good as Becton is. And so it's, now you're looking at it saying, all right, we got a front that is going to come after you. And I'm without my left tackle. Like, that's a scary proposition. So I think the Patriots win. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I almost wonder, Mac had a great stat line on Sunday. I almost wonder if his stat line isn't quite as good. I think maybe we see his first interception, just because I think that, I do think they're going to try to open it up a little bit more for him. He's got a pretty good deep ball. So I think they're going to try to open it up a little bit more for him. And as he does that, he's going to make some mistakes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him throw a pick, but I think it's probably going to be somewhere around 27-14. If I had to guess, put a number on it, I'd say somewhere around that 27-14 range. But either way, look, I think the Jets, and listen, I don't know about Zach Wilson. I didn't like him coming out of college, only because he had never done well against those like big teams.
Sure.
But the athleticism is there. The arm is there. Like, the arm talent is special. So those skills, if you can put those skills together, and the biggest thing for me is it always comes back to the coaching staff. I just think Saleh is a very good coach. And so you have a guy that's not an idiot, that can do what he needs to do, and can, build a culture in the locker room. And that is almost, look at what Belichick did for 20 years. Obviously he had Brady, but he was able to build a culture in the locker room for 20 years that kept people coming back, and, and kept everyone interested. And yes, you have to have the quarterback. You can't win without the quarterback, but you have to have the coach too. And, I think you guys have a damn good coach. And so if Wilson can turn out to be the type of player that Jets fans hope he is, then, there's a good chance that you guys are going to be competitive in the next few years. So not going to happen yet, but in the next few years, I think it could happen. And honestly, you almost kind of don't want to have happen yet, right? Because then you get another high pick next year, and you can kind of build off of that. So, but yeah, that's where I see is about the 27-14 range.
All right, we'll see what I will say this, that if the Jets could get any win this season that wasn't Carolina, the whole Sam Darnold thing, I mean, I don't even know what I would like more. The Jets at 1-1 getting their first win, which would be great, or sending the Patriots to 0-2. Quite frankly, that thought and what would be going on down in your streets there in New England with 0-2, 0-2 in the division and everything, that's tasty. And
yeah, that'd be bad. That'd be ugly.
Favorite, but.
That'd be ugly. But hey, you never know. Hey, listen, 4 points was the spread that opened up.
That's right.
So it's not like Patriots are huge favorites to win, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens.
All right, Pat, thank you so much for joining us, man. You were amazing, and I'm sure we finally found our New England guy. You were great. You lived up to the hype, man. Can't wait to chat again.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, and I'll absolutely. Next time they play, I'm in for sure.